Thank you, Angela. Thank you, John. Thank you, Marcus, to be here with us. Good morning, everybody. It's a great joy to be here, and it is also a challenge to me speaking English. So my name is Juliana, and I am a professor at the Universidade Estadual do Tocantins, in Brazil. Today, Marcos, online, Angela, John, and I will focus on designing adaptive governance for the water, energy, food nexus. Does it work? Yeah. Will you help me, please? So here's the agenda for our workshop. We will outline and discuss physical aspects of water, food, energy nexus in Tocantins, Araguaia River Basin, located in Brazil. We will also present a case study that illustrates how organizational cybernetics can support the diagnosis and redesign of a river basin organization with a focus on viability and sustainability. Initially, we had the idea of developing something focused on nexus in the UK. However, due to the difficulty in accessing data and our limited in-depth knowledge of the UK system, we decided to take a different way. So we will. Please?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's begin by introducing some key concepts and the context of the water, food, energy nexus in Brazil. To do so, we will start by presenting a short video that is part of an effort to raise awareness and disseminate knowledge on the nexus and cybernetics through materials produced in Portuguese. But the video is subtitled.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I think you have to do that from the machine.
Desafios globais decorrentes do crescimento populacional e das mudanças climáticas estão cada vez mais em destaque, levantando questões fundamentais sobre como suprir futuras demandas por água, energia e alimentos, diante de recursos naturais limitados e degradados pela exploração. Nesse contexto, para enfrentar os riscos interconectados que afetam a segurança dos sistemas que compõem o nexo água, energia, alimento, é necessária uma lente integrativa em uma paisagem fragmentada. O estado do Tocantins, no Brasil, destaca-se estrategicamente devido à sua vasta extensão territorial e extraordinária diversidade ambiental, com o bioma do Cerrado ocupando 91% de seu território. O Tocantins é o segundo estado com a maior área preservada do bioma brasileiro. A região hidrográfica Tocantins-Araguaia tem um papel importante no contexto nacional, pois se caracteriza pela expansão da fronteira agrícola, principalmente com relação ao cultivo de grãos e potencial hidroenergético. Algumas das principais hidrelétricas localizadas no Rio Tocantins incluem a Usina Hidrelétrica de Tucuruí, Usina Hidrelétrica de Estreito, Usina Hidrelétrica de Lajeado, Usina Hidrelétrica de Peixe, entre outras. Como parte da região Mato Piba, o Tocantins é o principal produtor de grãos na região norte do Brasil, possuindo uma área plantada de mais de 1,5 milhão de hectares durante a temporada de cultivo. A abordagem da interdependência do nexo água, energia, alimento tem ganhado popularidade tanto no meio acadêmico como entre os formuladores de políticas públicas. Essa abordagem desloca o foco do tratamento isolado dos sistemas hídricos, alimentares e energéticos, que muitas vezes resulta em consequências negativas não pretendidas, para uma perspectiva cibersistêmica que aborda essas questões de maneira mais integrativa e sustentável. O conceito de nexo água, energia, alimentos aborda explicitamente as interações e retroalimentações entre sistemas humanos e naturais. O nexo se concentra na base dos recursos, incluindo os biofísicos e socioeconômicos, dos quais dependemos para alcançar objetivos sociais, ambientais e econômicos relacionados à água, energia e alimentos. As interações ocorrem dentro do contexto do que chamamos de impulsionadores globais externos, tais como migrações, urbanização, desenvolvimento industrial, modernização agrícola, comércio internacional e regional, mercados e preços, avanços tecnológicos, diversificação de dietas e mudanças climáticas, bem como no contexto dos impulsionadores internos mais específicos do local, como estruturas e processos de governança, interesses estabelecidos, crenças e comportamentos culturais e sociais. Essa configuração proporciona um contexto rico para entender as complexas relações interdependentes do nexo e os desafios enfrentados na governança desses recursos naturais. No Tocantins, uma experiência inovadora vem sendo desenvolvida para abordar e gerenciar o nexo água, energia, alimento. Uma equipe de pesquisadores de diferentes organizações está interessada em estudar sob quais condições ocorrem a coordenação e colaboração entre os diferentes setores do nexo e como nos adaptarmos a um ambiente turbulento e em constante transformação.
E essa propriedade está a 15 quilômetros da capital, do estado do Tocantins, um projeto de irrigação de fruticultura aqui do estado. Falando em água e energia e produção, né? Sem água e sem energia, você não tem produção. A energia no Brasil hoje é uma energia com custo alto, né? Se comparar com outros países. E a água a gente tem abundância, principalmente na nossa região, né? Por causa disso que você vai desperdiçar essa água. E também o agricultor tem essa consciência, porque ele é forçado a ter essa consciência, porque o custo de energia é caro. Então, para você bombear essa água para a sua lavoura, você gasta energia, né? A gente tem essa preocupação, primeiro, da conservação da água, que é um bem em várias regiões escasso, então você tem que preservar essa água, né? É um bem que há muita vida, e muita vida depende dessa água. E a produção, você aumenta a sua produtividade com a utilização da água, né? Tá? Isso sem dúvida. Tá? Então, essa coordenação desses três fatores é muito importante, né? Tá? Então, você trabalhando bem isso, você vai atingir a melhor eficiência, né, da sua produção, aumento de produtividade, visando sempre o equilíbrio do uso dessa energia e da água. Na nossa região, a gente é muito dependente de água e de energia, né, devido ao nosso clima, tá? Porque aqui praticamente chove 6 meses e fica 6 meses sem chuvas. Eu acho que se os 3 setores ou 4 setores, né, que a gente pode pôr ambiente, agricultura, energia e governo, né, sentassem à mesa e criar metas, criar métodos, né, você entendeu? Para a gente ser mais eficiente em tudo. Todo mundo ia ganhar, o meio ambiente ia ganhar, o governo ia ganhar, a agricultura ia ganhar, a energia ia ganhar, você entendeu? Então, falta isso, a gente ter uma agricultura forte, um clima favorável, um ambiente extraordinário para que possamos produzir cada vez mais com responsabilidade.
Com o objetivo de aprimorar a governança dos setores interdependentes do Nexo, os pesquisadores trabalham sob a perspectiva cibernética. O termo cibernética é proveniente do grego kybernetes e significa a arte de navegar. A cibernética é definida por seu pioneiro, Norbert Wiener, como a ciência do controle e da comunicação no animal e na máquina. O fato de que certos padrões são inerentes a tipos muito diferentes de sistemas, naturais e artificiais, intrigava Wiener. Modelos e métodos da cibernética organizacional nos ajudam a entender melhor as inter-relações complexas e dinâmicas entre água, energia e alimentos, para que possamos usar e gerenciar nossos recursos limitados de forma sustentável. Isso nos obriga a pensar nos impactos que uma decisão em um setor pode ter não apenas nele, mas em outros. Antecipando possíveis compensações e sinergias, podemos então projetar, avaliar e priorizar opções de respostas que sejam viáveis para os diferentes setores. Um dos teoremas centrais para a cibernética é o do bom regulador. Concebido por Roger Conant e Ross Ashby, destaca que um bom regulador de um sistema deve ser um modelo desse sistema.
O teorema do bom regulador é importante para nós que estamos estudando a abordagem do Nexo, porque ele nos diz que para controlar efetivamente um sistema, o controlador ou regulador desse sistema precisa conter uma representação precisa do sistema que está sendo controlado. O diagrama que estamos vendo na tela ilustra um ciclo de controle baseado no teorema do bom regulador. Pode parecer um tanto quanto abstrato no começo, especialmente para quem não está muito acostumado a lidar com questões gerenciais. Mas essas ideias são muito úteis para o nosso trabalho em projetos como o do Nexo. Elas nos ajudam a entender melhor os bastidores de um processo. É como se fosse uma representação mental do que está acontecendo na vida real. No diagrama, a governança aparece, antes de tudo, como o regulador de um processo pelo qual os dados reais são verificados, então alimentados em uma unidade de controle, onde são comparados com os objetivos. A comparação entre valores reais e algo podem, então, levar a decisões corretivas. Temos aqui um mecanismo de feedback autocorretivo baseado em valores históricos. Em um processo regulatório assim, o possível efeito de perturbações ou desvios não é antecipado. Ou seja, até agora, esse é um processo controlado com base apenas em resultados. Num sistema de governança do Nexo, um princípio complementar deve ser colocado em prática. É aquele que chamamos de direção, ou do termo em inglês, steering. Estamos falando do mecanismo de feed-forward, baseado na detecção de possíveis perturbações futuras, contra as quais medidas prospectivas e preventivas podem ser tomadas. Entendemos que a criação de um futuro desejável está amplamente baseada na direção e na regulação, que são princípios complementares para a governança da interdependência do Nexo.
Em um mundo cada vez mais interconectado, a abordagem do nexo água, energia, alimentos oferece uma oportunidade única para promover a sustentabilidade global. Ao diagnosticar e projetar melhores mecanismos de coordenação e coerência de políticas setoriais, podemos enfrentar os desafios do futuro com confiança e resiliência.
Like the lights. Yeah.
Joana?
Yes. Thank you. So now that we have seen the video introducing the key ideas in the Brazilian context behind the water food energy nexus and how it relates to cybernetics, let's take a closer look at a case study. The case study was developed under the research project Enhancing the Resilience of Water Management Through Participation and Governance in Palmas Lake RBO, Brazil, funded by the Linden House for Latin American region from Switzerland through a joint project, a joint grant awarded to the Universidade Estadual do Tocantins and the Swiss Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, EAVAI. Next one. The case study purpose is to diagnose the status quo of the Lake of Palmas River Basin and suggest organizational improvements. The Lake of Palmas supports one of the world's largest hydroelectric plants in my state. Therefore, the following research question arises. What can we learn about the dysfunctional coordination in the Lake of Palmas River Basin organization and possible improvements in governance to enhancing its viability and sustainability by applying the DSM? Next one, please. Oh, sorry. It's okay. I spoke about this slide.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to. Next one. This diagram represents the integration of two complementary approaches to understanding and intervening in the governance of river basins. On one side, the water flow diagram which describes the operational level, focusing on the physical water flows and their multiple uses across the river basin territory. On the other side, the viable system model, which provides a cybernetic and organizational perspective to understand and structure the process of regulation, management, and governance acting upon this operation. Next one, please. In the viable system model, which level of the organization has the potential to be viable on its own? In the other words, which river basin organization at each level is responsible for maintaining its own viability. What you see in figure 1 is a structure that keeps these different levels in balance. Each unity has a high degree of autonomy, but that autonomy is limited by the need to stay connected and coordinated with the broader system. In VSM language, we call these primary units, meaning the combination of regulatory system and the water system it manages. Thinking recursively like this helps us analyze how viability is sustained or sometimes compromised across the different layers of governance, which is especially important in complex water energy food system. Our system main focus is the Lake of Palmas River Basin, the regression 2. Next one, please. Next one.
Stop working.
This figure is a water flow diagram, shows the for an average rainy season. We have two different seasons in Tocantins, the rainy season and the dry season. And we are using data from 1993 and 2023. In this period, agriculture was the main water using, relying entirely on rainfall, and crop yields were 38 times higher than in the dry season. Most of the water returned to the atmosphere through evapotranspiration, which was considered a natural and well-managed process. However, some surface runoff from the crops raised concerns due to potential pesticide contamination. Infiltration into the soil was also noted, but since the model only includes rainfall over croplands, this doesn't reflect the full picture of groundwater recharge. Water usage for households and industry remained stable across seasons, so it was average to a low comparison. Next one, please. And after exploring the dynamics of water use during the rainy season, we now shift our focus to the dry season, where resource availability is much more limited and management challenges become more evident. This figure shows the water flow diagram for the Lake of Palmas River Basin during the averaging dry season based on data from the same period. The agriculture received 102.8 million cubic meters on rainfall, but only a small portion of the farmland was irrigated. In the rain-fed areas, most of the water was lost to evapotranspiration, with a smaller portion running off or infiltrating in the soil. Irrigated areas used much more water per hectare, with irrigation methods such as center pivots, micro sprinklers, and drip systems drawing water from surfaces sources. However, irrigation faced major losses: 25% during transport, 21% through evaporation, and only 12% actually contributing to biomass production. Livestock consumed about 31 million cubic meters of surface water, and concerns were raised about the risk of contamination from animal waste. Urban areas, particularly Palmas and Porto Nacional, the most bigger cities in Tocantins state, abstracted around 21 million cubic meters of water from rivers and lakes, which was treated by PRK Ambiental. But the water supply system showed significant inefficiencies with losses of 30% in Palmas and 39% in Porto Nacional. Smaller tolls relied on groundwater, but there was limited information on treatment quality, so the safety of the flow remains uncertain. Sanitation was relatively well managed in urban areas with good sewer coverage, but rural housing routes mostly used moonlight pits, raising the risk of groundwater contamination. Industrial water use was recorded in about 1 million cubic meters, although this number is likely underestimated. In summary, the dry season water flow diagram highlights several challenges. High water use for irrigation in a very small fraction of farmland, substantial water losses in both irrigation and urban supply, runoff from pesticide-treated fields, and possible groundwater contamination due to inadequate rural sanitation. Next one, please. When we compare the water rights officially granted with the estimated actual use during the dry season, and we find major gaps. For irrigation, only 12 million cubic meters were granted, but actual use was around 116 million. For livestock, 0.3 million were granted, while the estimated use reached 31 million. In contrast, the rights granted for human consumption were quite close to the actual reported use. For industry, including mining, the granted volume was very low, just 1.2 million, while real use is likely much higher, especially with the strong presence of the construction sector. The figure here shows the water flows based only on officially granted rights. It also highlights a critical issue. Groundwater use, especially from private wells, isn't regulated or monitored. In short, there is a clear mismatch between authorized and actual water use and a regulatory gap when it's come to groundwater. Next one, please. So here you can see a map that gives us a snapshot of the current state of water governance in the Lake of Palmas River Basin. The diagram shows who is involved in managing water in the region and how their roles connect to the 5 subsystems of the viable system model. Red text points to missing components or dysfunctional areas. From our analysis, several key weaknesses became clear. At the operational level, local management units have very limited autonomy, few resources, little technical capacity, and poor infrastructure. Many of them don't have access to the data they need or platforms to share information, which affects coordination with higher management levels. There are also problems with monitoring, especially when it's come to rainfall, water availability, and quality. Agencies like Natura Teams in S3 star, CEMAR in S4, and ANA in S5 don't always exchange information effectively, which creates a disconnect between planning and operation. The River Basin Committee in S3 is meaning to lead basin level governance and include all sectors, from government to civil society. While it has legal authority, the committee has been focusing mostly on regulatory tests like water classification study and fee implementation. Stakeholders have flagged issues such as uneven representation, high turnover, and limited resources, both technical and financial, which will reduce the committee's ability to act effectively. At the structured level, CEMAR is responsible for policy and planning. However, strategies and planning. However, we observed that plans are often approved by State Water Resource Council, as in S5, with little discussion. Without critical review, these strategies risk becoming disconnected from local realities and needs weakening the link between long-term goals and day-to-day operations. The water flow diagram in our diagnostic using the VSM showed a major gap between the water use that's officially allowed and what's actually being used, especially during droughts. This mismatch points to a lack of institutional capacity and weak local management, in some cases, even a total absence of local management units. There are also serious issues in how data is collected, shared, and used. Information isn't moving efficiently between different parts of the systems, and there is no effective algedonic channel to alert decision makers to risks like scarcity, overuse, or pollution. As a result, preventive or adaptive responses are often delayed or don't happen at all. One of the main takeaways is the need to improve monitoring, information flow, and coordination between agencies. Strengthening these systems is essential for ensuring the long-term viability of water governance in the river basin.
Excellent.
Yes, please. This is the last slide, and we produced these materials to work in a participatory process. All diagnosing and design for this work was realized with a participatory process, and it's a big effort that we have made to disseminate VSM, the potential for the diagnosis and redesign in our state. It's a big challenge to translate this concept to community like indigenous peoples, agricultures, but they have received this concept in a positive way. So now we can get on to the workshop, I think.
Questions on this clarification?
Okay.
Think, Angela, some clarifications first?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yes. Please.
Thank you, very inspiring. Not a theoretical question. What do you think is the value of the VSM, especially in practice, if you're talking to the people? What are the benefits that you see with this?
For us, the most important things was because people don't know what is the function and the structure of the policy, the water policy in Brazil. It's very complicated to understand. And when we show it, this diagram, the functions for these people, they can localize it themselves in the system, their function, and this is amazing because they can demanding things in the contest, in the field, to authorities and so on. For me, this was amazing.
Just a quick note, because we have a master class. No, the question was the elevator. There it is.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
Brief question. What were the outcomes of your project? You described the context, the process, but what are the outcomes at this moment? What has really changed?
Okay, for us in the community, the big change was before they don't think about the price of the water, the fees of the water. They don't think about this. They are using water and don't pay for this. And we have the policy obligated the users to pay for the fees. Now we got the permission to start the studies to charge for the water. Another outcomes was in the system 5. The system 5 never talk about the conflicts, never talk about the purpose. They are functioning like a registered chamber, and decision making just go and nothing by authorities, and they validate in this area. I think this is the main outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Very interesting. I'm also wondering whether this model allows you to look at future contingencies such as climatic changes in a way that enables scenarios to be addressed and policies and mitigations to be put in place against uncertain futures, but perhaps possibly predictable futures.
I think this is the next step for us. I have heard the Lasso book, and he has a nice part to talk about the scenarios. We will try to put this in practice.
This may be a totally fanciful idea, but I was thinking about what happened in Chile. It was the first attempt to introduce the VSM under Allende, and they had some artists. There's a guy, Chilean guitar player or whatever his name was, Harris. Does anyone know the name of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Victor Jara,
Was it?
Victor Hara.
Victor Hara, yeah. So that kind of was an attempt to include the ordinary people in what is extremely abstract and remote from their experience. You know, I think there was a song, "A Baby is About to Be Born," about the DSM. So has there been any effort to do something comparable in your country?
I don't like in Chile.
In Chile, so this was back in the early 70s.
Yes.
The first.
Now in Brazil, doesn't happen nothing about VSM in the government. I think I am the few people in Brazil working with VSM.
Yeah.
It's a big challenge to us put this in practice, and I hope we get this in the future.
Okay.
Appunto se arrivava a question from Worker Federation.
We're very interesting, Brianna, report so congratulations. I have a question about the water that goes the groundwater, because you market that flow as a problematic. The question is in relation to that, how is handling the water what goes to the land, underground? Is kind of thing, no? So how is to visualize to change that from problematic to non-problematic?
And first of all is register the use in groundwater. In Brazil, we have water in abundance, and we can see problems in real time. So the people there are construct in field to get water from groundwater, and this happens. Today I wake up and decided I will take a groundwater and I contract enterprise. They go to my home, they perform the groundwater, and I have this water. This is very problematic, and we have 2 seasons. So people want to be safe in the dry season, and everybody knows and now has water from groundwater. And another hand, we have the contamination for pesticides. This is this is very, very problematic for us because the agriculture is the main, it's the main money that Brazil gain. So we try to work with education programs and fiscalização. Assim, fiscalização. Não taxes. Supervision, a kind of supervision, legal supervision with policy power, but doesn't work.